looks like we're started. Cool. Full disclosure, we are recording this meeting tonight for posterity. We do post videos on our website to illuminate the general public. You know what I forgot to do is turn on the mic. Thank you. All right. Because I'm wearing a mask tonight, so that's why we're going to use a microphone. I know that it's a small crowd, but just to make it easier to understand. Hi there, everybody. I'm Grace. I'm here for Jay, our president, who could not make it tonight. Yes, it's Valentine's Day, but that was not his excuse. It's also his wife's birthday. And so the two of them together just kind of canceled out, kind of overruled SEVA today.
Although next year, his wife's birthday will also be on Valentine's Day. Yeah.
That's true, but the SEVA meeting won't be. So that's okay.
True as well.
So I guess that means that we can reelect him, right? So welcome. We're going to start off today with asking who's new here, who hasn't been to a SEVA meeting before. Anybody? No? We've got all our veterans here. Man, that's the first time in a long time we haven't had new folks, but it's a small crowd tonight, so understand. Which means the meeting's going to go pretty quick. We won't keep you here all night, promise. Great, so we're going to start off with my list here. This is our annual meeting, which means that once a year, according to our bylaws, we've got to have a meeting to do our annual reports and do our election of board members. So we're going to start off with our secretary, Billy, right over here, is going to kind of review what happened at our last annual meeting in February of 2022 to start off with. You ready?
Yeah. At this meeting 1 year ago, Jay Donaway was in attendance, and the vice president and secretary were elected. And after Grace read the bylaws rules, Jay nominated Grace for a third term as vice president. Then Jay nominated Billy, that's me, for a second term as secretary. The slate was voted in by acclamation without a recorded vote.
Good. And then here.
Following the election last year, Charlie gave the financial report and noted that of the $27,000 in SEVA's bank account, ongoing expenditures are solely to $30 monthly donations to the church for use of the social hall.
That was it? Yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty quick election last year too. So that's terrific. We have had a few changes since then because back beginning of last year, we hadn't been doing any car shows or events or anything like that, so we did not have any extra expenses. This year was a little bit different. We actually got back on the road and started doing some things. So we're going to ask our treasurer, Charlie, right here, to give us a little report about the past year. And I do want to note that the trophy here, if you were here last month, we did award the annual CV Advocate Award trophy to our treasurer, Charlie. And we just got it engraved, so it's now he's immortalized on the plaque right there. So now he gets to take it home with him. Thank you, Charlie, yes.
Okay, so for the financial report, we started February 1st, 2022 last year with $27,115, and we ended up February 1st this year with $25,517, which was about $1,600 net decrease in funds. On the income side, we had $845 of income. 683 of that was through PayPal, primarily membership dues and donations. And we got another $48 through Amazon Smile donations. Unfortunately, I've heard Amazon Smile is going away.
It is.
Yeah, apparently they may do something different, but Amazon Smile as it is today is not going to be continuing much longer.
Right.
We also made $54 in interest income and had another $60 in cash donations. On the expense sides, we had a total of $2,443 in expenses. 360 of those dollars were for meeting room rentals, including this room and the use of the church for the Christmas party. We had about $40 in the state of Secretary of State filing fees for our nonprofit status. And we had $500 stipend for our president's attendance at the Oslo EV conference that he reported out on earlier last year. And we had $225 expense for XXX Root Beer car show. Our USPS post office box rental cost $273. Greenwood Auto Show was our biggest expense at $650 to cover the entrance fees for all the SEVA attendees. And we had a $395 for the Greenwood after party.
Good.
And so, yeah, we are starting this year at $25,517.
Thank you very much. That's illuminating. It's nice that we have a good balance in our bank. I would like to see the balance not go down every year. So that would be good to maybe start pushing the memberships.
Yeah.
We used to do a raffle to raise money just to pay for the space here, but since we already had a balance, we
After
decided
40
to go
years of raffling, we accumulated $25,000. The house always wins.
Yeah, so we're probably going to look at seeing what we can do with membership. Our membership chair is not here tonight, but we're going to ask Mark Schiller to update us on what our membership looks like and how we can maybe increase some of the donations that we're doing here. That would be terrific. And then we're going to next go to the board election part of the annual meeting. And I think our Secretary Billy will go over the bylaws real quickly about what we're required to do.
Well, we are required by Section 5.4 to hold the annual meeting in the month of February. At the time and location designated, well, never mind. It's going to be right here. Yeah. The directors shall be at least 3 and not more than 9, and it has been 4 for as long as I can remember. Unfilled positions may not be appointed, must be filled by election, and we are indeed electing 2 positions tonight. Section 442, directors shall be elected by the persons entitled to vote at the annual meeting. It doesn't state who is entitled to vote, but everyone in this room is entitled to vote as far as the secretary can determine. Directors' service on the board shall be limited to no more than 5 consecutive 2-year terms, and I think Jay qualifies under that criterion, although I haven't been keeping track.
I think he's up for the 3rd 2-year term.
And the term of each director shall commence on the date of the annual meeting of SEVA. So Jay consented to be conscripted in absentia.
That's right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for going over that. So now we know what we need to do. And so our 2 positions that are up for election this year are president and treasurer. We do have both our current treasurer and president have agreed to serve again if so elected. So that's Jay, who could not be here tonight, and Charlie, our treasurer. Now, this is the time when we open nominations. We did announce it the past 2 months as well that nominations are open for those 2 positions. So if anybody does have a nomination from the floor of somebody who would be willing to serve in 2 years in one of these positions, then please go ahead and make it now. Oh, I thought Mark was going to volunteer.
Oh, no. Mark's has been there, done that.
Yeah, good. But we've gone through the motions and we've done our due diligence. So if there are no other nominations, then We're going to put it to a vote. Let's start with the president's position. All those in favor of Jay Donaway being reelected for another 2-year term as president, please raise your hand. Anybody opposed? Okay, that would be unanimous. Billy?
Opinion of the secretary, it was unanimous.
Excellent. And then we'll go for the position of treasurer. And Charlie, I believe this is your second two-year term, all right? And are there any other nominations for somebody who would like to serve as treasurer for the next 2 years? Mark has done his duty. He is welcome to come back, though, if he wants. Because our bylaws do say after you've been off the board for 3 years, you can come back on. Yes. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Seeing no other nominations, then we will ask for a vote on re-electing Charlie Tsai for the treasurer position. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, it's unanimous.
When the secretary says it was unanimous.
Unanimous again? Fantastic. We have accomplished our mission for the annual meeting. Thank you, everybody, for participating in that. Let's move on to the meaty part of our meeting tonight. We're going to start with policy updates. I don't know how many of you have been reading the increasingly lengthy messages I've sent out about bills under consideration in Olympia. There are some of them that aren't going anywhere. There's a few bad bills out there that have been proposed to try to slow down the transition to electric transportation. All those look like they're not happening, so that's good. Except for the one about providing state insurance for gas stations against their underground petroleum tanks leaking. There's definitely been some pushback on that, but it is advancing with bipartisan support through the House at this point. And so we're not sure where that's going to end up. The hearing that was scheduled last Friday in the Senate committee ended up getting canceled at the last minute. So we're not sure what's behind that, but it's likely that some of the comments that have been received about concerned about taxpayers now picking up the bill for insurance for gas stations leaking and polluting the environment is, yeah, people are probably getting concerned about that. So we're going to stay on top of that and see where that one is going. But let me just go get my list right now, because our esteemed president did suggest about a month ago that we should be taking some positions, some official positions as an organization on some of this legislation, and have some messaging so that our members can go directly to their legislators and have some messaging that's, you know, all coordinated so that we're all saying the same thing about the things that are important for us. There are a few issues that I think it would be good for us to weigh in on. And so let's see, I did want to get a little bit of feedback today from everybody who's here about the kinds of things, that messaging that you would like to see on specific issues. So the petroleum tanks bill, that's one of them. Does anybody have any thoughts about that? You don't have any opposition to SEVA opposing it? You have a thought. Go ahead.
The thought that I have is that I have done battle with committees, bureaucracies before. And when they pull the hearing, that means they don't like what people are going to say. So congratulations to everybody who checked the box, and thank you for raising that so that we can all comment on something I think is important. So
Fantastic, thanks.
Yeah. So what's your name?
I think that cancellation is a very good sign for them not liking what we thought.
Yeah, so what's your name?
Eric?
Oh, yes, Eric, right.
Olson.
Right. And another thought also is the Senate may not want to hear those comments, but at the same time, the companion bill in the House is advancing. It passed through its second committee, and now it's headed for the floor for a vote. It may be that the Senate wants to just wait till the House version comes over to them and just say, yeah, we concur, so they don't have to go through too much of the burdensome process. We'll see.
I think I have a slightly different sense of it. I think that
oh, yeah?
I think it could be that The cancellation of the hearing means that they intend to forge ahead without having to hear the negative comments. Which is pretty much what you were saying, but I guess the difference being that they will feel free to ignore the comments ignore the opposition that clearly is there. No hearing, nothing heard.
Yeah, it's possible. Public hearings are required, but if they've already been held in the House, they might not see a need to do it in the Senate, so yes. Anyway, that's one of them that I think that we want to weigh in on. Let's see, that one's not going anywhere. Oh yeah, the hydrogen one's probably not going anywhere. Oh, the purchase of the zero emission school buses, having that be required by the year 2035, that's a pretty long way off in the future, but I think that we definitely want to support that happening as soon as possible, and creating a statewide fund to help schools be able to purchase zero emission school buses. That's going to be good for kids, good for health, good for the environment, good for especially big diesel school buses. Emit a lot of carbon, and that's, the sooner we can change them, the better for everybody. So I think we all want to push forward on that one. Anybody have any thoughts about that? Yes, go ahead, in the back.
I just started driving the school bus in the mornings as a
Oh, you did,
but
great.
As an engineer, one of the other environmental issues is their brakes. They change them out very often.
Yeah.
And that's a whole emissions thing.
They do all that stop and go, yeah.
And with regen, brake wear goes way down, so that's something. Personally, I'm not a huge environmentalist. If it pays in my pocket, I'm all for it. If it helps the environment, maybe, maybe not, depending on whether it pays me. So that's just, I'm not a long-time member.
Well,
it's just kind of where I stand on things.
That is wonderful. That's an
But I'm all
absolutely
for,
wonderful
like,
observation.
Most environmental things pay, and sometimes they take a little while, right? But they pay people as well as the environment.
Exactly, and one of the big problems with that is the brake dust that gets into the water system, and that's just horribly toxic stuff to fish and all other kinds of aquatic creatures. So that's a huge point there, because school buses do all that stop and go, and yeah, that's huge expense for those school districts, but at the same time, expense for the environment. Make sure that gets in our notes there.
Yeah, sorry. You're the one with the newborn baby, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
sorry, but I don't remember your or the baby's name. Sorry?
Roland.
Roland, sorry.
Thank you, Roland. That was terrific. I love that. Okay, great. Okay, now I got to go back here again. I thought maybe I'd use my iPad, but the Wi-Fi here is not best, shall we say. Okay, and then the next one is, oh yeah, maybe that will work, yeah. Oh yeah, that one's not going anywhere. The new one, the Keep Washington Evergreen license plate. I was very glad to hear about this one getting introduced, because we've been talking for years here at SEVA about how can we get a specialty license plate just for electric vehicles to kind of show that, yes, we're on board with that. Some electric vehicles, you can really tell that they're not gas cars, but a lot of other ones, newer ones, kind of look like a standard car, so you can't always tell. It'd be nice to have something that really points it out, that people are adopting these. But the new Keep Washington Evergreen plate, I think, is a good step in that direction, and that we might want to really support that, particularly because all the proceeds from the sale of that plate are going to go toward installing public charging stations around the state. Yay, how exciting is that? Whoever came up with this idea, thank you. We didn't have to do it because it was going to cost us like $30,000 or something to put in the application. It was a lot. So, so thank goodness this is happening. We have any ideas for support, opposition? Everybody good with pushing for this one?
That's a good one.
Let's do it. Let's get it through, because something like this might just kind of get lost in the shuffle because of the fact it's, doesn't have a big impact. And if we have some voices speaking up and saying, yes, push this through now, maybe it'll actually happen. So let's give it a try.
So this is an EV vanity plate or license plate holder?
Yeah, it's a specialty plate, so like
Okay,
the
so,
ones you
yeah,
see for
Well, not really a vanity
disabled
plate, but yeah, right,
veterans,
yeah.
Pearl Harbor survivors, and there's a bunch of them. Seahawks, all the music, yeah, right. So it'd be like one of those, only it's gonna be Keep Washington Evergreen, as it's gonna say on it, and it's going to be green letters on a white background, just like the retro license plates we used to have back in the 70s. So, kind of fun for those of us who grew up here. All right, so let's do that one. And then, this light is shining right in the wrong place. Oh, yeah, the one that I was concerned about is that it sounds good on the surface, expanding the sales and use tax exemption to include all hybrid vehicles as well as electric cars. And yeah, sales tax exemption sounds terrific, but this would end up being many millions of dollars, and because it would apply to any vehicle out there that's listed as a hybrid, and that would end up costing the state a lot of money, which they probably would not like.
But they can just raise the registration fee again.
That's
to make
probably
up for
what
it.
they would
Yeah,
do,
right,
yes.
yeah.
And then those dollars could be much better used encouraging people to buy all electric vehicles or plug-ins rather than, you know, a Prius, for instance. Okay, yeah, it gets good mileage, but is it doing a lot to limit emissions and stop the use of fossil fuels? Not so much, so.
It probably does. I mean, when Prius first
Mm-hmm.
came out, it was, I think, a real advance in fuel economy. That was,
yeah.
kind of losing track how far back that was. It was over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Wasn't it, the earliest Prius?
2001.
Yeah,
Right.
22 years ago. So it's, I think Grace is right.
Yeah. It's true, we have come a long way, but at the same time, that would take away your incentive to stop using fossil fuels if you could get an even better incentive by, you know, buying something that's hybrid but is still using plenty of fossil fuels. So anyway, it's something there might be some debate about, but I think it's worth saying at this point, this is probably not the best way to do it. Does that work? What do you think, Brian?
I'm certainly willing to oppose this. However, sometimes with the legislature, it's good enough to throw something in there to change the bill in your favor, because you may not be able to overcome all the opposition. As a fallback alternative to outright opposing it, how about we say it only applies to plug-in hybrids with more than, say, I don't know, 20 kilowatt hours of battery capacity?
Yeah, that would work for me, and I think that's how the existing law already says that.
Oh,
Yeah,
it does? All right.
right.
Are there any hybrids that have 20 kilowatt hours?
Oh, maybe not. Yeah,
Well,
Volt is 16, and Volt isn't made anymore.
Then it would,
well, all
Then
right.
it wouldn't be any of them, and that's a good idea.
no, I think the
right, yeah.
existing law says it gets at least like 35 miles on old battery only, for instance. Yeah. What's that?
it'd be the carrot,
That'd be the carrot. Yeah.
carrot for hybrids to have bigger battery packs.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where it reads right now, as a matter of fact. So I think what we have now is working as well as it can. What would be better is if we expanded the sales tax exemption to be more rather than less, because it's decreasing every year right now, and it would be nice if it wasn't decreasing, it was staying the same or increasing. I think that would be a better use of those dollars. So that's a message that we can put into our concerns on that one. Okay, we're almost done here. There's only a few left. There's two bills regarding e-bikes, and they're similar but slightly different. One of them would allow anybody with an electric assist bike to use non-motorized vehicle trails and closed roads. The other one would allow only disabled people with a disabled sticker to be able to use those electric assist bikes. I don't know if they're mutually exclusive or not. It might be reasonable to support both of those, or we might want to just say, let's just let them go on their own and see where it lands. Any thoughts about that one?
Does each one of them do a restriction? And like one restricts the use of the e-bike.
It does restrict e-bikes to the same rules as non-motorized bikes, so you can't exceed a certain speed limit, for instance, depending on what trail you're on. Yeah, things like that. So, and also, if you do have a motorized bike, you're gonna need a permit for it in order to go on trails. So it sets up another bureaucracy. I don't know if anybody here is really big into electric bikes, but they are taking off. They're becoming a really big thing, especially here in Seattle. So I definitely see the one for disabled folks being able to use trails and getting better access for them as being something we want to support.
I think a lot of people commute to work on those trails.
They do.
And I've talked to a few, I don't have an e-bike, wish I did, but talking to people have them, and some riders are very much against it. And
Oh, yeah.
why? Because when you see them coming, they're pedaling. The only thing is they have a tail light burning.
Yeah.
In the daytime, you can usually tell, well, that was an e-bike. But I am all for keeping any restriction off of that. I don't think their e-bikes are a problem. I think the biggest problem are other riders who are working out for the SPS or something like that, and they whisk by you at 40 miles an hour. That's a problem, especially when they try to avoid pedestrians and then you're behind that whole mess and of their making. That's a problem. But the e-bikes, I don't see that. And I see on other trails, like down in the one that goes from Puyallup out toward Ording.
Oh.
And you see a lot of e-bikes there ridden by seniors. I mean, I'm one, but I always think they're older than me. But,
Yeah,
and,
good.
But they're out. I mean,
Yeah.
they're out on the trail, and it's not causing a problem because that's a low traffic trail as compared to, say, Burke Gilman during commuting time, or say weekend.
Right, and that gives exercise to people who otherwise might not be out there riding a standard bike with no electric assist. Yeah.
And I usually stop when it starts going uphill at Ording, but they just whisk on by, and I think, well, I'd like to go on by. And that's quite a climb. It's fun coming back, but getting there is quite a thing after you've ridden about 3 miles, 4 miles, and now you've got another 5 miles of uphill. So I'm very much in favor of that. I see a big benefit of allowing e-bikes on all the trails without having a lot of bureaucracy or restrictions, that kind of thing.
Right, but just being restricted to the same rules that apply to standard bikes. Yes. That just makes sense to me.
I'd say, we ride electric bikes on like Burke Gilman.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever, quite a bit. It's nicer, warmer, but the most dangerous thing I see are people who are training or commuting, and they fly past us, and we're on electric bikes, and they just rip past you and are weaving. Sometimes that's where there's problems, when they are exceeding if there's a speed limit.
Yeah, I've seen lots of dangerous stuff too, and those are not e-bikes that are causing the problems.
Yeah, e-bikes are scary.
Good.
And in full disclosure, when I was younger, I was one of the people that both of you were talking about. And I was probably a hazard to pedestrians on Burke.
Stay on the road with the cars.
Yeah, I mean, now at the age of 67, I probably
not e-bike, right? Yeah.
Right. Homemade, right?
Right. So hopefully that won't be an issue. Okay, good. And then, let's see, almost done here. Okay, then that was the e-bikes one. Oh, the other one that we really want to, oh, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted you, go ahead and finish, and then I have a question.
Okay, good. Now, the last one that we probably really want to do something about is the preventing the destruction of electric vehicle charging equipment by adding the components from EV charging stations, such as wiring and things like that, to the definition of commercial metal property, so that they'll have to be marked and they'll have to be restrictions on how you can sell them. Metal buyers won't be able to just buy that stuff that's been stolen and vandalized off of EV stations. So I think that we really want to push for that one to go through as soon as possible. Good. Any concerns about that one? Yeah.
Why exactly is it not already illegal to be buying property that you have good reason to think is stolen?
Yeah, just having good reason to think is stolen is not enough, unfortunately. Like the whole catalytic converter thing. You think people aren't buying those? Yeah. Well, sure, it's just off my car. Right. So that's the thing, is this would require identification of those materials, and so that it would become a crime to be buying it from somebody if it might have been stolen.
I really thought that was already the case with catalytic converters particularly.
Well, it is if you know it's stolen, yes. But in this case, there are no restrictions on EV equipment at all. So we need to make sure that that's added to the list of things that are going to be crimes. Yeah, Larry?
Because of my short range, I use a lot of charging stations.
Yeah.
I leapfrog from one to the other. And so I find more problems with charging stations that are not functioning than I've had problems with vandalized charging stations. And I see very rarely a vandalized one, and it's very common to find one that doesn't work. And I call up Blink. They do answer, that's nice. And they say, we're trying to connect with it. No, we don't. So it's the problem of the vendor. I said, what's a vendor? I need a power, and that kind of thing. And I see quite a number. I made a big map of all the defunct charging stations that are out there, and I just adjust my travel so that I avoid them. But it's very annoying when you kind of count on it, roll into Fred Meyer, and none of them work. And it's just like kind of a shocker.
Well, and I see this as an equity issue too, because how are you going to get somebody to adopt electric vehicles instead of gas when everywhere they go they see non-functional charging stations, particularly lower income people who are maybe going to buy a used Leaf and it has lower range, and they're going to need those public charging stations.
Well, the highest concentration of working chargers in this whole area is within 3 miles of my house.
Oh.
I don't need them, but I did drive around and look at them all, see like 10 brand new Blinks and 3 Clipper Creeks all in the same basement parking lot in Woodinville. Thought, man, this is a luxury. And then a couple miles from there is that the place that sells organic stuff. They have a whole row of Clipper Creeks, and yeah, it's free, but come in and make a donation, that kind of stuff, all looking brand new. But
yeah, what we need is that one charging station at the feed store out of the little town that gets vandalized, That's the one that you don't need to get vandalized, for sure. Okay, so good. We will definitely weigh in on that one.
Actually, on his point, have we considered any state-level performance metrics for EVSE uptime?
That would be nice to have something like that, wouldn't it? Yeah.
What would be the enforcement? Vandalize it. Sorry.
Fees, fines, maybe? I don't know, maybe fines. Yeah.
Are there any performance metrics in the federal incentives for charging stations?
Not that I know of,
Okay.
because if they were, then Electrify America would be getting
Not
enforced.
qualified.
Yeah.
There's a lot of discussion and debate across a number of Tesla and other EV community channels about charging infrastructure. There's a particular channel, Out of Spec Motoring, who does a lot of reviews, he's in Colorado, of DC fast charging stations and how brand new Electrify America stations were not online because of a cold snap that they had.
Yes, heard about that.
And he's begun like a Twitter campaign to report your experience with an EV charging station, to try to get some community feedback. I think that PlugShare is probably the best natural application already for rating charge stations. So as you're visiting charging stations, do you use PlugShare, the app?
I use every app, and they don't all list everything, but yeah.
So PlugShare is not a vendor's app. It is a community-based app where you can like check in and say, yes, this charger worked, or no, this one didn't. And if you go to a place that has 5 chargers and you had to go to 4 of them that didn't work to get to the one that didn't, you should report that I failed to charge, and I failed to charge, and I failed to charge. And then I got a charge at the 5th, because it's a great way of collecting this data that has been around for years.
Yeah, PlugShare is the only one that showed in this underground parking lot, showed the 6 blinks and 3 Clipper Creeks. Because Blink says, well, we got blinks there, and they give you the approximate location.
Right.
And looks like it's 8 feet below the ground or something. I can't find it with the Blink, but PlugShare took me right to it. So you're right about that. That's a good overall app.
Yeah, so I think like encouraging more use of PlugShare and rating of charge stations gives us maybe a community source of data to get this kind of metrics, right?
Yeah.
Well, more to the point, I think there's one other state, maybe Colorado, maybe Massachusetts, that's already experimenting with laws on EVSE uptime. And so there's someone else who's already put in all the time and effort to think about how to craft this.
Might be good to find out what that is.
Yeah, I was trying to think if there is a bill under consideration that could be added, like as an amendment, but I don't think we have anything that's like related at this point. So we might have to look at next session to do something
Yeah,
like
might
that.
just be something to
It's
like
kind of late for this year.
keep our eyes and ears open for,
Yeah.
if anyone is making progress on,
Yeah.
This performance metric for charging stations.
Exactly. If we have like a model ordinance somewhere that we can just ship over here and say, let's do this in Washington, that would be ideal.
Exactly, and the right way to get it passed this year is to say that, well, Electrify America will not meet this standard. They will be paying a lot of fines to the State Department of Transportation, and this bill is now necessary to implement the budget.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, good point. Okay.
To your point, if there is no data that says they don't work, then if I'm driving an ICE car, then obviously they all work. I never had trouble with one, so therefore it's not a problem and no action's required. So I think
I
collecting
think
the
that's,
data is the
it's a good
beginning.
note to add to our comments about the electric vehicle charge stations. Yes, we don't want them vandalized and having equipment stolen, but also we want to make sure that there are performance metrics that require the providers to keep them up to date and working.
Even if they're required to have a red or a green light on top.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah.
You know, like,
So you don't have to go park at each one and plug it in before you find out it doesn't work.
shame on them,
Yeah.
but you can't get it all.
Yeah, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah,
Okay.
so what was the channel? The out-of-spec motoring did just that. Shamed Electrify America into getting technicians to the sites to repair them the next day.
How to
Good.
just.
Because he has a
Just
wide enough
online
audience.
with enough.
He's a large enough audience, right? That all of the charging networks pay attention to his channel, right? Because he's got enough pull, enough influence, right? And so that's not something that we can all do. He's kind of kickstarted this rate your charge thing, which I see is kind of akin to the PlugShare app and rating, checking in and rating charges that way, which I wish he would have kind of leveraged that as a unified data point, but,
Yeah. Well, let's try to at least bring up the subject this year, and if we can't get any action on it this year, keep pushing it. Yeah, let's do that. And if you can find any model ordinance, somebody who's already done it, share it, send it along. Good. Okay, finally, and we may not want to weigh in on this, but there is a new effort to outline standards for operation of autonomous vehicles on state roads. And yes, there have been several attempts before, and they didn't go anywhere, but this one is kind of the next step. We're going to have autonomous vehicles. How are we going to control them and limit them and make sure that they're going to be safe? And so since most autonomous vehicles are, autonomous features are on electric vehicles, it kind of does affect what EVs are doing in the state. So does anybody have any thoughts about whether we should be pushing for this or just kind of leave it alone? We probably don't want to oppose it at this point, but.
I would err for leaving it alone. I mean, yes, I have my opinions, but
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Yep.
I would think, that, let's see, how do I say this? Capitalism could, control it, and that is, you just have to have such a high insurance policy on it. And if they get in an accident, then they'll price themselves out of the market for autonomous taxi or something like that, but,
We may not need to have government regulation then because insurance may do it for us.
Such high insurance
Okay.
on that, and if they are indeed safer than human drivers, then there shouldn't be any problem, but I think that'll regulate it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, Mark. Thank
Yeah.
you. Good point.
I read through it,
Uh-huh.
and I think
Yeah.
that part of the expectation in this law, but I think it'd be universal anyway, is that there has to be, am I remembering right, a person to answer the phone
Yes,
when a cop pulls
there has
one
to be
over.
immediate contact
There has to be
available.
someone who
Yeah,
answers the phone, and they also have to be financially responsible.
right. And they have to be licensed as such too, so they'd have to go through that whole process.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
anyway, it's an attempt to try to put some controls and limits on this because the state knows it's happening, it's coming. We want to be prepared for it. Okay, well, let's go ahead and not weigh in on this and see how it plays out. And if some really egregious amendment gets added to it or something, then we'll want to weigh in. So, good, we'll see that. And then there's one more about allowing utilities to recover costs of installing electric vehicle infrastructure, charging infrastructure for commercial, but I'm not sure that really affects us that much. So that's what I have. Anybody else have any thoughts? Yes.
So I saw something in the Seattle Times about 2 weeks ago
Mm-hmm.
where a bunch of people in Olympia were complaining that EVs were going to overload the grid and destroy the entire power grid here. And it seems like that's not quite right. It seems like there's first some very simple limits, like a lot of the Bloomberg projections are EVs will only be adding 20% of load to the power grid. But beyond that, there's also technological solutions out there in the marketplace to go and solve that. Seems like there may be room for some simple education to the legislature on this issue.
Yeah, was that like a rally or something that happened? I didn't see it.
I saw an article about it, and there was a bunch of people griping. And it's going to be people that oppose EVs in general. They just found one issue to latch onto, and we can at least combat FUD wherever we see it pop up. So.
Absolutely, because yes, it is totally untrue. I don't know if any of you got the survey that I answered the survey, I think from PSC, might have been a couple of months ago, but it was all about time of day pricing and what would you pay and would you change your habits and charge in the middle of the night or stuff like that. And I'm really anxious to see what the results of that were because I assume it's going to guide how we're going to change when people are charging and not overburden the grid. We do have plenty of electricity, it just depends on when you're using it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did recently read something about that. I think it was on the Seattle City Light website. In 2024, the proposal right now is from midnight to 4 a.m. or 6 a.m. to drop the rate down to 8 cents an hour.
Yeah, it's actually in the minutes from a few months ago. My wife was working on what used to work at City Light until she and I both retired at the end of last year. And she actually gave me all of the time intervals that and the proposed rates for them, and it got posted in the minutes. This would have been I think maybe about October or November or so.
Yes,
So,
but The key to that is that City Light's already saying what they're going to do, whereas Puget Sound Energy was saying, well, here are some things we could do. How will you react to this? What will work best for you? So they were surveying, they're not quite at the same place where City Light already is.
Yeah. I would say the overall problem that Brian was initially bringing up of what naysayers' attitudes are is the same naysaying can go for any large industrial use. Load shedding has been around for a century. I mean, this is really not a very difficult situation. Yeah, it's not difficult engineering on this.
Yeah, that's right. And now that people are discovering that solar power actually works in Washington. Yeah, we make a lot of solar in the summer, and then we make a lot of hydro in the winter. So I think we'll be okay. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that the State EV Coordinating Council Advisory Committee, it's the new organization that's supposed to provide advice to the state agencies about how to implement EV charging and fleets and everything EVs for the future. They're having their first meeting tomorrow. Jay and I both applied to get on this committee and we didn't get on.
That's my question. What's that all about? I don't understand that at all.
Yeah. It's supposed to be people who are experts in a number of different fields. And nonprofits was one of them, but none of us got chosen. Did somebody from Climate Solutions get in? Maybe? I don't know. Anyway, it wasn't any of our nonprofit organizations.
The woman under JNC, what's her name?
Tonya Buell?
She got Tonya Buell, she's part of the committee though, right?
Yes, that's right. As a state employee, so she's representing state agencies, yeah.
Okay.
But there's also Jeremy Smithson, who has been with us for a while. He's representing solar installers.
Okay, that's
so,
good.
Yeah, and he's an EV installer, EV charging installer as well. So.
I actually joined in the Zoom call for like the parent organization that came up with this technology.
Yes, it's the EV Coordinating Council is their name.
And it's amazing. There's some really good stuff in there, and then there's like, let's go talk to the Department of Agriculture due to some arcane law where they are in charge of setting the policy for this.
Weights and measures, yes. I know.
But then, you know, as the day goes on, you get through all of their priorities, and you start realizing, oh, there's people in here that want to advocate for prisoners that are getting out of prison and trying to return to the workforce. And you're like, all right, it's a little bit hard to make sure this is actually focused on EVs.
Yeah.
But
and that's a good point, but it might be good for us to monitor what's going on there, making sure there's not misinformation getting passed on, and that, you know, important points don't get missed. So if anybody wants to get on this Zoom call tomorrow, unfortunately I can't, but I think it would be good for us to kind of monitor what's going on there. Jeff, are you going to do it?
Are you going to send out the link?
I did. I sent it out earlier today, I think, yeah. Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, you should have an email with the link in it, so, yeah. So that's happening like once a month, I think? Yeah, something like that. Well, anyway, it's going to be an ongoing effort, so we'll hopefully get to track that. But let's move on to events. I want to keep going because unless there's anything else about policy that we should be doing, we're good. Good. It's time for events. We can actually do stuff again. We had a good start last year. We did some great events and had some really good conversations with people, got some good visibility. We're getting started with Earth Day this year, and we're actually doing 2 events already, and there are several more that are going on as well. The 2 events are both on Saturday, the 22nd of April. One of them is on Mercer Island, and the other one's down in South Park. So I would encourage you, if you can make it to either of those events, 22nd, please do come. Yes, they're both listed on the Drive Electric Earth Day website that's run by Plug in America. And so you can just put your zip code or your city in, and it will take you to all the local events that are happening. And then you can register there, you can sign up there to volunteer or bring a car or whatever you would like. But definitely want to encourage people to get involved and come. There's limited space at both events, so please sign up early so we make sure we have room for you. Hey.
I already signed up for the Mercer Island event.
Thank you. Charlie's already signed up. Yay. All right. Fantastic. Yep. And then I got invited to go to an event in May. It's the Kitsap EV Fair that they've been doing every year for quite a while. There are room for a number of cars to exhibit there, and I'm going to do a little presentation. And if anybody wants to go on May 20th, it's on Bainbridge Island. So just keep that in mind. I'll send out a link to it later so that everybody will have that. I don't have it right now, but I'll put it in the minutes, Billy.
I'll also mention that I was talking to Stephen Johnson, and you know, several years ago we used to go to Bellevue College and show cars there. You know, during intermission or between classes, students would be able to walk by and see the cars. And since COVID happened, we haven't been doing that. But he did contact the school, and they are very interested in having us come back this year. So he was in the process of negotiating a date. It would probably be, the week of the 15th of April.
That's Bellevue College, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And during the week, right?
During the week.
Well, the students are in class.
Yeah, so, I think they originally proposed one date that Stephen wasn't going to be available, so he was proposing some alternate dates, and so they haven't firmed anything up, but I believe he is planning to, or hoping to attend next month's meeting, so he'll be able to provide more information at that time.
Excellent.
Is he also going to check with UW Bothell, because that used to be the two local to me that I would always go to.
Yeah.
And I kind of missed that one.
Yeah, I don't know if he was working that or not. He didn't.
It's a good thing to
mention that.
ask him if he's got contacts there still, or if you have any contacts, or anybody does, then let's find out.
Used to set that up.
Yeah.
I just know when I'd show up, the guy running it knew me
Yeah.
before, and they would give me this big UW canopy, those 10 by 10 canopies,
Nice.
just for me. Says, okay, there it is, just back in there, and they give me the little ticket for the free lunch.
All right.
And then they send all the engineering students. I know one professor of engineering used to work for Hewlett Packard, and he sent all his students over, and they'd all pass judgment on the truck. It was a great time, and then there would always be a lot of whatever was new, Leafs and Teslas and things like that.
Yeah, good question. A lot of people haven't gone back to doing those events they had in the past, but now we're starting to see some of them happening. So very excited about that. But please, everybody, keep your ears open. If there's an opportunity, share it with the rest of the group on the listserv and say, hey, I'm thinking about going to this. Anybody want to join me? That's the way we've worked for a long time, and I hope we can keep doing that. Anybody here know anything about Greenwood this year? I haven't heard anything yet, so we will ask our President Emeritus Steve Lowe to check in on that and see if he's got any updates, because we'll want to start organizing for that. That's the big thing that we do every year. Any other events out there that anybody knows about coming up that we should be part of?
How about the one in Shoreline, what did they used to call it?
Shoreline Solar Fest is defunct.
Yeah.
It's gone. I know. I love that
Kind of hang
event.
around like, we've got to
Yeah.
charge up here, so we would run, plug in our two trucks and then head over.
Free beer and pizza,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're with all of them, and then we get free beer and hamburger and stuff, and it was a fun way to kind of end the day.
It was a good event, and I'm really sorry that it has gone by the wayside, but it did not survive COVID, so.
It didn't,
no.
yeah. Okay.
Unfortunate. But hopefully there will be some other opportunities, so keep your eyes open. Anybody have anything they would like to share? like a project you're working on? Any announcements? I know Mark I want to hear more about the Core Vault. Would you like to let us know the latest?